I don't want to brag, but I have had my fair share of failures, some biggies, some very small ones, and everything in between. I'm going to share some of my own failures, but more importantly, what I want to share with you are some of the things I learned along the way, and specifically on some of the things we need to do to help us have a healthier relationship with failure. What could have saved me a lot of heartache and what I wish I knew in my 20s, what I wish I knew in my 30s and early 40s is the importance of understanding and changing my relationship with failure. Failing is hard. It can be deflating. It can be overwhelming. It can leave us feeling frustrated and discouraged and sad and heartbroken and embarrassed. And it can leave us with an overall sense of feeling very vulnerable, which is never a great way to feel. Welcome to part two of my three-part series on life lessons I have learned from living my past 57 years. This little three-part video series that I'm doing on life lessons actually came about as a failure, and I will share that at the end of the video if you want to stick around for that. And if you're thinking, "Oh, yeah, I know all about failure." Oh, my friend, remember, this is more than about knowledge. To really make a change in your life or in your living, remember, this channel is about lead your living. You need more than knowledge. You need to put that stuff into action. And I hope you know this, and you probably know this, but just in case you need to hear it, remember, you are not your failures. I love Albert Einstein's quote, success is failure in progress. So I see failure as a cycle. And the cycles vary in my life. I have what I refer to my young Angela failure cycle and my mature Angela failing cycle. Young Angela's failing cycle was three short steps: fail, react, sometimes hide those reactions, don't share them with anybody, hide them, feel bad about them, be embarrassed about them, feel shame about them, all those reactions that come with it. And then avoid, avoid, avoid. Do not repeat that situation. Do not repeat any kind of similar situation. Don't get yourself into a situation that could result in a similar failure. Just avoid, avoid, avoid. I don't even know if that's a cycle. It's kind of a straight line, and then failure and react is the end point. Don't let failure be your end point. So the mature Angela failing cycle is actually a cycle. It's not a straight line, and failure is not the end point. In some ways, that's just the starting point. So it goes, I fail, I react. Yep, still after all these years, I'm still failing and I am still reacting. That I don't think will ever change. But I've added a few steps. So after the reaction, sometimes I need some time and space before this actually happens, but then is the learning and the reflecting phase. Ask yourself a couple questions. Start with, if I had a do over, what could I have done differently? Don't get stuck in the do over because you don't have a do over. This is about learning. Life keeps moving forward. You need to keep moving forward. What is my reaction really about? Ooh, that's a tough question. Sometimes that gets us into that area of discomfort because sometimes we may react to something and we think afterwards, God, why did I have such a strong reaction to that? Do a little digging. That helps you figure things out for yourself. Then you think about, okay, well, if a similar situation comes up again, what would I do differently? What are some things I could pull from this that I know I should try again differently? We're all great at thinking, oh, if I only said this or if I said that. That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, give that some thought, but this is about getting yourself ready to put those into action for the next time, getting ready to go forward. Then it's one thing, remember, that's just the knowledge. Those are just the thoughts. You got to put it into action. So then the next step is do better. Find little places to practice these lessons that you've learned from that failure. You don't have to do it all out and you don't have to tell everybody, but if you have, maybe your lesson is simply, and this has taken me a long time to learn this lesson, but I can have a situation and I'll react immediately. And then I may say things that I really wish I didn't say. Sometimes those words are hard to take back, and it just creates a whole lot of unnecessary chaos. So maybe the lesson after a situation like that is simply, okay, what I need to do is pause, have the stimulus or whatever the situation is, but pause before the reaction hits, or at least pause before the reaction comes out of my mouth. Oop, see, I get a little enthusiastic as I'm chatting about these things. So you still have the failure and you have your reaction, but try to create some space between there. Maybe that's the only lesson I'm going to take forward for my next failure. but practice it. And we need to practice it consistently and practice it with the small failures so that when you have the big failures, and we all have them, you'll be a little bit more equipped for it. And then the next phase is be better. And you will be better if you continue to try to do better. If you keep practicing these things, this eventually will just make you be better with a failure. And it starts to change the relationship with failure. You start to look for opportunities to fail. Well, we're not out there saying, oh, yeah, let's fail. Okay, here's a little bit of science for you. Did you know that our brains don't really understand negative words such as avoid, never, don't? I saw this was just I was reminded of this the other day when I was listening to Simon Sinek, and he was talking about how, remember, your brain does not understand negative words. And so if you've had a failure and you're going to say, I'm never going to do that again, don't don't miss the target, don't miss the target. Oh, don't hit the side of the road, don't hit the side of the road, or don't forget his name, don't forget his name. Our brains don't hear the negative descriptor. It only hears the other part. And so what he said, what Simon Sinek said in his video is, I'll prove this to you. Don't think of an elephant right now. Don't think of an elephant. I know what you're thinking about. So that works the same way as when we're trying to tell ourselves, don't stomp on your dance partner's toes or don't miss the target. That is just kind of reinforcing miss the target, stomp on the toes. We need to change our thoughts. Instead of don't miss the target, hit the target, hit the target. It matters how we talk to ourselves. I'm not kidding. This is the sciencey stuff. Does that mean you're not going to fail? No, of course it doesn't. But what it does mean is that you're starting to get a game plan for your next failure. Some failures stay with us much longer than they should. And I'm not just talking about great, big, ugly failures. I'm talking about little failures that become great, big, ugly stories we tell ourselves in our mind. And so in our mind, they become these ginormous failures, even though it was a fairly little minor experience. Check out my video on limiting beliefs and my experience with telling a joke as a child that went very bad and how that followed me for decades without me even knowing. Accept responsibility for whatever part was your part in the failure. However, don't be too quick to do that because sometimes we accept responsibility for a failure that had nothing to do with us. We're just one of those people pleasers and think that we have to accept responsibility for everybody's failures. But if it is your failure, accept responsibility for it. Make it right if you can. If you've hurt people in the process, try to make that right and accept responsibility for it. May include an apology, depending on what the situation is. But most importantly, grow from it. When we're in the middle of a failure or just after a failure, when it kind of hits us, oh my God, what did I just do? That doesn't feel like growth. It's kind of like going to the dentist, and we know that's all about wellness, going to the dentist regularly and getting your checkups and having your oral health checked out. That doesn't feel like wellness when you're actually sitting in the chair and they have things sticking in your mouth and there's horrible sounding machines. Sorry, those are my own issues about the dentist. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. That doesn't feel like growth while you're actually sitting in the chair. And this is the funny thing about growth. I love this quote by John Maxwell. Our growth is stored up before it starts to show up. Oh, yeah. All these failures are leading to success, my friend. So here's something fun. I did not know this. I only learned this while I was preparing for this video. There's an organization called the Failure Institute. Check it out, www.thefailureinstitute.com. Their website says that they are an organization committed to changing how people handle failure. Now, I'm going to say a swear word, so if there are any little ears around, you may want to cover them. I'm going to say the F word, but only to explain something, not to say it in an angry way. So consider yourself warned. You can mute with this part, but it's part of a title that I wanted to share with you, so I have to incorporate it. Okay, here comes the swear word. The Failure Institute are the founders of what they call fuck up nights. Yes, you heard that correctly. This is an official trademark name that they have. And what a brilliant idea. I love this as I was reading about it and learning about it. They describe this as a specific strategy that's used to break free from the paradigms that limit our lives. A dedicated schedule event that focuses on sharing stories and failures so that the stigma is removed and lessons are learned. I love this. Imagine if families did this with children. Now, it'll be probably not great to call it a fuck up night. Might not fly with the whole family theme, but who knows? Whatever fits, I guess. But maybe you could call it family failure night, and just to make it fun and to talk about kids about, okay, how did we fail? How did each of us fail this week? What happened? Oh yeah, and listen to the stories and let them start to feel safe to fail, and more importantly, start to talk to them about, okay, well, what would you do differently? How would you do it differently next time when you're in a situation like that? How would you do it differently? Do you want to practice? Imagine how much further ahead our kids would be. I wish I knew this as a parent or had this idea as a parent. I think sorry, I'm going to change the name. I think family failure night would be a great thing to have, but call it something, I don't know, more creative and more innovative than that. But start early. Remember, many of our failures that start in childhood can be very small things, but follow us for our entire lives because we've never changed our relationship with failure. What an opportunity for growth this is. When I'm talking about changing your relationship with failure, that does not mean for a second that I'm talking about it is excusing or glossing over your errors and failures. No, not at all. It is about allowing ourselves and expecting ourselves to consider what went wrong for the purpose of doing better and being better. I went back to a 2015 podcast episode. The podcast was called Freakonomics Radio Podcast. It's from a 2015 episode. Steve Levitt was the person being interviewed, and he had such a great comment about failure. And this is what I think we all need to understand and move forward with, is that failure doesn't define who we are. We know that. We've already talked about that. He goes on to say that failure gets something out of the way that was going to keep you from getting to the person you are capable of being. Failure gets something out of the way that keeps you from finding that thing that you're actually going to be good at. What a healthy way to look at failure. Next time you have a failure and you're beating yourself up about it, ask yourself, okay, how would I respond to this if it was someone I loved coming to me for advice that they experienced this failure? What would I be saying to them? Talk to yourself the same way. Our brains are listening. Our neural pathways are developing based on how we react and how we talk and how we learn. So be patient with yourself. Also, be patient with others. We're all just trying to figure it out. If you've made it this far, I need to tell you the story that referred to in the beginning. I had said that this video series, which is a 3-part series, came about as a failure on my part, and really a failure with planning. So at the time when I thought about this video topic, it was a trending topic on YouTube. I'm a new YouTuber. I'm still trying to figure it out. And apparently, when there's a trend within your niche, you're supposed to follow it. So, one of the trends was about sharing life lessons if you're over 40, over 50. So, I wanted to jump on that. Well, yeah, I jumped, but I kind of missed the bus on it because I ran out of time. It takes me 2 or 3 days to do a video. And I'm doing it slowly, bits and pieces, whatever. Anyway, life would have it that it was the very last day. I upload every week. And so on the day that I'm supposed to upload, I'm sitting down to actually record, write a bit of narrative. Then I have to edit. Then I have to do a thumbnail, title. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen in a video before the recording and after the recording. I was probably halfway through these 3 key lessons that I wanted to share, and I realized I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make the deadline. There's no way I can get this all recorded, edited, and uploaded in time. It was very deflating, and because as a new YouTuber, I've been very committed to at least getting one upload a week. They may not be great, but I'm hitting the target and I'm trying to be consistent with the time. And so it was a hard pill to swallow when I realized that it's not going to happen. I'm going to miss my weekly schedule. And then I kind of thought, here I am doing a thing on failure as one of the key lessons. And so I did a bit of reversing and started to think, okay, time to think about this a little bit differently and get innovative and creative with it. This is, of course, after I had my time to react. And I threw a full on temper tantrum here by myself in my house when I realized that it wasn't going to happen. But then it took some time and to think about it, I thought, well, this isn't a huge deal, even though it felt like a very big deal and felt like a huge failure to miss the target of getting the upload done. That's when I decided that I need to do 3 videos. Yes, I've missed the boat on the trend with YouTube about sharing life lessons, but this to me is still important information. I've missed the trend, but I want to share this information because I'm hoping it can help somebody. And so I decided to do 3 different videos. And here I am. And because I did the recording for a lot of this on the first day when I started, and then had to abort that process partway through when I realized I was running over time, I have this blouse, my very loud heart blouse that's sending love out to you all. I have to wear it now in all 3 video series because I have parts from that first day that are in each of the 3 videos. And salvage what you can out of an experience and learn as you go forward. Big lesson for me is don't leave the planning and the recording to the very last day. You'd think I'd learned that lesson by now, but still learning, still failing, still sharing. Part 3 will come out next week. I always upload in midnight Wednesday night going into Thursday morning, so see you then. In case this is your first time visiting the channel, my channel is Lead Your Living, your wellness, your work, your leisure. I'm so glad you joined me. And if it is your first time, hit that subscribe button so that it's not your last time. You'll be able to find me a little easier.